Welcome to 50/50 Books, the book review podcast where the books are split in two, and figuring out just what is going on is always a toss-up. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Jonathan. This episode we are reading Horrorstör by Grady Hendrix, up to but not including Chapter 9, Mesonxic. Taylor, when we introduced this book last episode, I mentioned it's sort of a satirical book, but still a haunted house horror, which I think has actually made it a little bit different than some of the horror we've done in the past. So let's start like we always do. How are you feeling about it so far?
First of all, I'm feeling the satirical energy, and I'm so glad about it because if I had to take this book seriously, I would hate it. Because it is kind of like, the haunted house, haunted store, ghost story, them investigating. Like, it has that goofy energy, but I'm not forced to, care about it as much, which is good because I don't care about it as much. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that. So this is the second book I've read by Grady Hendrix, and the other one was it's like the vampire slaying one. I forget the full name right now, but I felt like in that book and in this book, the author has done a good job of making non-likable characters readable.
Yeah, and that helps when the characters also maybe feel a bit more caricature instead of just character. Like,
yes,
feels more acceptable in this kind of state.
Mm-hmm.
But still, the characters are pretty interesting.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way about Matt, which I'll bring up when we get into his character. But as far as being a bit of a caricature of a person.
Yeah.
So let's get into the book. We also mentioned when we introduced this book that it's a pretty visual one, so I wanted to bring up some of the front matter of the book, which I thought was kind of cute and fun to look at. It's clearly trying to parodize IKEA, and honestly, I didn't think IKEA was going to get mentioned in this book because of that, but it turns out, actively in the world presented to us, this store coincides with IKEA and is just trying to be IKEA, and so all the visual language is there. It has the map, which questionably isn't really that helpful when you get into the actual book. And I like these advertisement kind of pages, the order form, policies, all that. The one that I liked the most mentioned that the Orsk warranty is voided if you don't follow the easy to follow instructions, which just the direct IKEA attack is evident there. So I think that sort of character at the beginning is fun. That kind of sets the tone for the satirical nature.
It's super complicated for no reason.
Yeah.
The trying to make it feel real. It's very marketable, I guess, right?
It's kind of kitschy, right?
Yeah. I feel like it's something people want to achieve when they put out a book, but it feels natural and right in this book to do it.
Exactly. No, and kudos. There's a whole graphic designer, and now I don't have their name in front of me, so I'll try to pull it out for the next episode. But they got someone to set this book this way, right? And then you get into the pages too, and the text is in that kind of almost black blue font, and there's these it's sketches of the furniture. With these kitschy descriptions too, which I don't know if the author did those or if that was part of the graphic design, but it's all it's almost too trying to be too fun, so that way it does come off as kitschy,
right? And we've seen some of this stuff before, introducing handwriting and special pages into books. I think in horror that's a lot more typical to have things like that, but it feels especially well implemented in this book rather than just doing it for the sake of being interesting. Everything fits very well.
Yeah, it definitely feels like part of it as opposed to I don't know, forced, I guess. Getting into the content, we have Amy, who is kind of in a way a classic disgruntled employee, though maybe a bit more vocal than the ones you'd see in other literature or movies. So she's fully disenchanted with working at Orsk, and transferred to this store from another one, and is ready to go back. And she just clearly isn't feeling the job and is willing to make that known, and almost not even try any harder to as a result.
Yeah, I think she's in a position here where because of Basil, her boss, manager, whatever, she's not allowed to coast. I'm assuming she was in Youngstown, so it'd be preferable to go back because based on what we know from the beginning, she doesn't have money. She's stretching the same coffee cup over days.
Right.
And it's like disintegrating in her hand. So it's like clearly she's not
yeah.
I know. Clearly she's not getting paid enough. I would say like all retail workers are probably not getting paid enough. Most humans are not getting paid enough.
And she even points out that they get paid more than a minimum wage worker too, and she's like, I can't pay rent with that.
Yes. So I think it's like she's getting paid $12 an hour, and I think they do have benefits. So it's like, it is good, right? But like in this economy, like I don't think so.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's no point in like pretending she cares about this family that's trying to get sold to her at this company, because it's like they don't care. The company doesn't care about you.
Yeah. When it feels like there is a cost to making that extra money because you are expected, and especially Basil puts sort of the pressure of expectation to lean into that part of it, of like there's like company values you're supposed to hold up and have a certain image and I don't know, character to you that is like beyond what should be expected of a person who is working for $12 an hour and is one of 250 people working at the store and all that. So it makes sense to me that she would be this disgruntled and this disenchanted, and I'm shocked not more people are. I mean, I guess we see Matt as a bit disenchanted as well, but just not to this level.
Yeah, and we can like get into it probably in the next part where it becomes fully developed, but like this is like conversations we've had a million times as like working adults in America, like that difference between what is your job and like what is your life. Right. And Basil brings this up, like, but in the wrong way, I think, because he's like, this should be your work, not just a job. Like, he wants Amy to like just be here, like completely, and it's just such a bad way to be as a human. But we've kind of tricked Americans and like most people into thinking this is the way you have to be to succeed, and it's like, no, don't.
What's funny about that is later on Basil will say to Carl something along the lines of, you're a victim of the economy, which Basil's obviously not seeing the other potential side of that, the other extreme that he is under,
which is interesting when we know more about him because of Ruth Ann. He's like taking care of one of his siblings. I can't remember if it's a brother or a sister.
It's a sister, 9-year-old sister.
Okay, so like I can kind of understand his commitment, right? Because it's like, not that I have experience in this, but like I can understand you kind of give up your life to take care of somebody else.
For sure.
Mentality. So I see where he's coming from.
Yeah, I think with Basil, particularly when Ruth Ann comes out with that information, like I was pretty annoyed by Basil for much of the book, which I think is the intention. And here, like, learning that he's taking care of his sister, and she gives the context that he grew up in East Cleveland, which is implied to be a rough place to grow up, and that Orsk had a role in turning his life around. Like, you see the incentive and the reason why he would lean into it, and it's hard to fault him for that, for sure. Like, I felt like I understood him more, but like it also doesn't like excuse the way he uses that kind of as a weapon against Amy.
Yeah.
Like in the way that he treats other people about that. Like, it's okay to have that experience and to even like, if you feel saved by the company, like that's fine. But like to say like, oh, like if I push this on other people, like it feels evangelistic a little bit, you know?
Yeah. I was definitely getting that kind of like religious culty vibes, which it becomes even more interesting when we deal with, I guess, the quote unquote villain of this book. And it's about like providence and like saving and curing and like all of that kind of stuff.
That's a good point.
So I'm assuming some connections will be made between those things.
Yes. I do think there's a lot of parallels between Basil and the sort of villain character here. So, so I would say, you know, the relationship between Amy and Basil is obviously not good. And like one thing that sticks out to me about Amy as well is that she claims to want to do better, right? Like she's concerned about the rent. She doesn't not want to be able to pay it. And it sounds like there's some like dream and aspiration in her that's just not coming out. Like the job is obviously not the right platform for it, but it's certainly not coming out at all. And so like on the one hand, I understand her behavior, but on the other hand, like I don't. On the other hand, I see why Basil's like, why are you behaving this way? Because you want to see her like try to at least make the dollar she's supposed to earn, right? And when she's actively, I don't know, making choices that feels like she should know better about. Like, I mean, Basil calls her out for having her phone on the floor, which, like, there's probably worse offenses, but it seems like she should know. Like, there's things like that where Basil's behavior about being punitive about it is bad, but, like, low-key, she shouldn't have done it, you know?
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, I get, like, depression, self-sabotage vibes a little bit.
Yeah, I think self-sabotage is really it.
Yeah, and I think based on her upbringing, it's kind of like she might not know how to expect better, or even she doesn't have a good role model for what it means to work, right? Like, she just kind of feels failed by everything, and even this job isn't enough for her to pay her rent, so it's like, why put effort into something when it's going to fail, right? Like,
That's
her family, her college, her job. Like, I understand the mentality. It's obviously not a great mentality to have, because, like, yes, she does have to put in the effort at least a little bit if she wants things to be better. If that's through getting a promotion where she is, if that's through, like, doing night classes, if that's through, like, planning for the future. But it's like, it's so hard to do any of those things when you feel like you're drowning constantly.
Yeah, I definitely understand all that. I just, like, feared that I was going to watch her lose her job, and she clearly did too, you know? Yeah. Like, the scariest part for that for me was actually, like, towards the beginning when she gives the tour to the newbies, and, like, the moment she's out of earshot of Basil, she gets sarcastic. Like, they're gonna catch you and fire your ass. Like, I was so worried for her.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, a shame, because it's obviously in that position, you want to help her. And I'm sure Basil would feel like shit for firing her, right? But it's like, you're not making this easy for me. It's I don't know. It's tough.
And the thing is, like, Basil clearly has some underlying faith in Amy, right? Like, he's approaching it in all the wrong ways, but he wrote in her review, and I think he even says it out loud at some point too, that she could be management material, right? I think my theory here is he either sees himself in her, like maybe he was kind of like rebellious in her way, or just sees that, like, someone who is willing to push back and be open about those things has the potential to be a good leader, right? They're outspoken. So whatever it is, like, he sees something in her. So it just, if things were like, I don't know, if just the tone of things were a little bit different, she could probably be a little bit happier and a little bit, you know, successful is the wrong word, but make some more money at the least, you know, something.
Yeah.
All right. I guess let's introduce some of the maybe more secondary characters. We get Matt, who I've mentioned a couple of times. His vibe is kind of depressed, honestly. Like, he's pretty down at the beginning. A bit anti-establishment. Like, I don't think he uses the phrase being a cog, but that's effectively what he says. Is like, he's a cog in the machine. But he also seems a bit unmotivated himself, a bit resigned. The other major feature for Matt is that he's pretty much entirely motivated in his actions in the workplace by Trinity, and his interest in her. Like, I think without her, there's, like, not much to Matt, honestly. And he definitely, like, wouldn't even be a part of the story without her. So that'll, I think, be very important as we go through the haunting overnight situation. Yeah,
I feel like until the very end, he was still saying ghosts aren't real, which is a crazy thing to say considering what we see. But
yeah, his role is, I think, the realist, right? Like, I think this is a classic member of the horror group, right? But it's so funny because it's realism to the point of not accepting reality. So like, it doesn't make consistent sense, but it makes character sense for sure. The other character here, Trinity, very perky, like, very extroverted, which grates against Amy because that's not her vibe. She's different from the other characters job-wise in that she actually does the staging, which apparently is closer to corporate, and so, like, people, like, laud that role. These trainees come through, we're like, oh my god, she works in staging, how cool. And we get this whole bit of them being like, I want to do that because then I want to go into corporate, and, like, presenting this job path of, like, moving up and sort of meritocracy of, like, if I work my way up, I can become a designer, and then I can go work for corporate, and then I'll have job security and safety for my family and health insurance and all this stuff.
I think another thing also is, like, this is the artist's side of capitalism.
Right.
Which we're not treating very kindly at the moment, but I think if Gen AI has shown us anything, it's that everybody wants to be an artist. They sure like to call themselves artists, but, like, that's kind of the desire. I don't know. Like, people want to create things, but they're not willing to put in the effort. So I think it makes sense for staging to kind of be this high desired position within like this corporate kind of like gray landscape we got going on here.
I think that makes a lot of sense, right? It's the role that is the most human of them all, really, right? You get to actually have some control over what you're presenting, and there's expression involved, and maybe you have to follow the guideline, the design guidelines and such, but yeah, there's just something more personal about it.
Mm-hmm.
The other important thing about Trinity is she is very much into ghosts. She's the first one to bring them up in the book. Is like, they're totally real. Who thinks they're real? Like, you're my people. So she's going to drive a lot of the ghostly interest of the book.
Yeah. To the point of maybe too far, but I mean, already too far, I
well,
would say.
Yeah. I mean, yes, for sure. The way she just like breaks down when she's like, oh, God damn it wasn't a ghost. Like, she's definitely too far into it.
That was insane, because it's like, you have a real human man running at you, and you're crying because it's not a ghost. It could never be me.
Right. Oh my gosh. The last character that sticks around through the night is Ruth Ann. She's one of the older employees. She's been around for a while. She mostly works checkout as opposed to the floor. She's, for the most part, like, positive, sweet vibes until a certain moment, but that's the character she presents for a while. She's the character that sees her coworkers as family. She doesn't have partner or kids, which fine, but like, that's used as a way to emphasize the fact that her coworkers are family. And she also mentions not having many friends of her own. She says limited friends, though she doesn't actually mention any friends in particular.
Yeah.
But let's get into the overnight situation. So, or I guess not quite the overnight situation, but just the haunting in general, because that does start a little bit more during the workday. We see at the beginning of the book, the employees all arrive at the beginning of the day for that first shift, and they can't get in the building. Like, the card reader's broken. Eventually they do make it in the building, but then the escalator is in reverse. And they're like, we didn't even know it could do that. And also the emergency stop isn't working, which is the real horror of this book, by the way. It's an escalator that doesn't have a functional emergency stop, in my opinion. Amy sees a random person when she enters the floor and says absolutely nothing about it, despite the fact that the morning has been messy, weird, and people are like asking a lot of questions about what's going on here.
Yeah, that was insane. A lot of
like,
her,
oh my God.
A lot of her behavior I kind of just passed off as she doesn't get paid enough to care, I guess.
Basically what she says, right? She's like, I'm not responsible for losses. Like, that's not my job.
Yeah, it is a little insane, I think, though.
Yeah, that's like where, like, and this is where the line between like the satirical and not satirical parts of the book, where I'm like, is this really just meant to be satirical, or is like, or is Amy really written to be this stupid about it? I'm like, I want to like believe that Amy is a whole human behind this, and this just feels like a gap for me.
Yeah, I feel like it makes sense for this to be more satirical, because like, workers kind of just have to put up with weird things all the time, right? Like,
and they talk about all the weirdness they witness at that store,
so you can't really do anything about it.
Yeah, and
it's kind of normal, I guess, to just see a man.
I guess, but like, it's clear that he's there before the employees and that they couldn't get it. I just, something like, even if she doesn't say something about it, I guess what I would have wanted in that moment to like really like solidify the satirical feel in that moment is for her to acknowledge like, oh, this probably explains everything, but I don't give a shit,
I see. Like, for it to matter later.
Yeah. So it was helpful when it does come back around for her to say, oh, like, I just, like, that didn't seem like my problem. But in the moment, I was like, I would have thought an acknowledgement or something. It almost felt like too brushed off to believe.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, it also like would have made sense for her to bring it up, to be fair, because there's a lot of stuff she does bring up, like the graffiti. When she sees it, she's like, that's a little weird, Basil, and Basil's like, not my problem.
Right.
And then we see like the weird stain in the ceiling, and she's like, that wasn't there like an hour ago, and Basil's like, yes it was, you're crazy.
Right.
It's like, oh, why say anything?
Yeah. I guess, and the context there is different, because at that point it's just the three of them, or so they think. Whereas this is like the beginning of the workday, and so probably to Amy, this is just another day with a stressful start. So I don't know, she's not bothered.
Also, to be fair, this is the point where she's avoiding Basil too, right?
True. What's she gonna go up to him? Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah. She also mentions here when she gets caught with her phone that the employees are getting these one-word messages that just say help.
Crazy.
Which I think does come back around later. It is crazy, especially because they're like, just don't worry about it.
Yeah. This was definitely satirical. Like, the way the company was like, it has nothing to do with us, even though it's all of our employees, so we're just not going to deal with it. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yes. And then the last thing we see before greater action is taken is that a Brooka sofa is identified to have dark, rancid smears on it, which people assume is poop. And that's where we kind of get the explanation of all these other weird things they've seen. But it is kind of like the last straw on there's too many weird things happening. And this is one too many times where something like this has happened, and now Basil wants to do something about it. So this is where Basil kicks into gear and is going to start looking for people to join him for a night shift.
Yeah. And to be clear, he does seem to ask everybody. Literally everybody.
So on the night shift, Amy finds names in fresh graffiti in the bathroom. And they all kind of have this structure where it says the name, says the word beehive, and then it lists a number of years. And I think maybe one of them says days, but mostly they say years. Occasionally those years are crossed out and they're replaced with higher numbers of years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I guess the assumption here then is that these are the prisoners, right? Like I had a brief thought that maybe it was like employees of the past, but then once we get more context on the panopticon from Matt, it seems more likely that they're prisoners in like sentences or just like how long they've been around for.
Mm-hmm.
And then Amy, Ruthann, and Basil do their floor patrol. Basil's like, let's split up. Classic. Amy is like, that's stupid. And so she and Ruthann travel together. And this is the moment where I thought Basil was dead because he went on his own. And that would have been crazy because it's at this point that Ruthann has like just told us about Basil's background that we talked about earlier. So I was like, that'd be crazy if he just dies right away after like giving us some potential emotional connection to Basil, or at least some deep understanding of him. But that's not what happens. It's just what I thought was going to happen. Ruthann is on edge here, using a lot of Blistex, and she barely remembers what the floor looks like. I mean, it's mentioned she works checkout, and so doesn't really go on the floor, but it comes off as a little bit weird, and Amy is a little put off by it.
Yeah, and this is when we get the hints of, like, the weird looping and stuff like that, but
yeah,
it does seem easily dismissible because of Ruthann, I guess. It's a crazy thing to say. But
no, honestly, though, I mean, that's kind of what Amy's doing, right? She's just like, okay, like, it's not that hard, you know?
Yeah, and plus I think Amy, or it gets mentioned somehow that, like, the place is also designed to be like this. Like, it's designed to be kind of confusing, and you're supposed to walk around and get kind of lost in it. Like,
right. Labyrinthine, one might say.
Yeah, yes, yeah. For the sake of getting more money from people, but like supernatural stuff aside, it seems like it was built with that intent. So
yeah, I found this patrol to be a bit superficial. I mean, they do get scared, so I get it to a degree. But Amy even mentions that people have been found hiding in the wardrobes before, and they don't check one wardrobe until like later on, until after they run into Matt and Trinity. So you guys could try a little harder. But they do find that the partner's entrance is open and the lock is jammed with gum. So this is where you start to be like, oh, like, is something spooky going on here? Or like, did someone break in, right? You're starting to get the vibe that something is up.
So quick, I'm just like, call the police.
No,
I don't know.
Honestly, oh man, I do have some thoughts about that because of when that happens. But yeah, it's like thinking the same thing. Like, why are we taking this into our own hands? And I would think that Basil, as someone who's, you know, kind of in the sauce of the company, would not want to take on the liability of these employees by confronting the situation himself. Like, what happens when they do run into someone?
Yeah, he explains it so oddly. Like, it's not really about caring about the safety of people. It's like he cares to the extent of how that will affect the company.
Or even his image to higher ups.
Yeah, for sure.
It turns out that the lock is jammed because of Matt and Trinity, so kind of in the typical haunted house vibe, the first thing that feels like a haunting isn't a haunting. It's totally explainable. They find Matt and Trinity fooling around on the musk bed, though supposedly the real reason they're there is to do some ghost hunting. So they've got all these materials with them, and Trinity is already fully convinced that this store is haunted, and they're going to 100% find a ghost tonight. Very committed to that idea that even if she's fully committed to it being haunted, I don't know why she's certain they're going to see a ghost, but she's in it. And Matt kind of supplies some of the context for why this place might be haunted. Amy knows that before the store is there, it was a swamp, but it turns out that before that, it was the Panopticon. I had heard of this at least one time before reading this book, but this concept of a prison where there's a guardhouse in the center of the prison, and all of the cells are kind of built around this central atrium, I guess, that the guardhouse is in, so that way they can always be surveilled. And that's what used to exist there. And then underneath said space, there's a labyrinth, and that is where all of them are working. So it's supposed to be their kind of rehabilitation through work. And I think the labyrinth here is probably what's going to come into strong play as we theorize about this book.
Yeah, it is interesting. We're getting another Panopticon. They're really popular right now, it seems. But yeah, that idea of if you're being watched or you think you're being watched constantly, then your behavior will be better.
Right.
I understand the sentiment. It could make sense, but also like that intense paranoia is probably not good for people, to be fair. And then you're also kind of making drones out of them, little worker bees in your labyrinth. So not a good place. Trinity is like convinced the negative energy of supposed innocent people being forced to be there is probably why it's haunted. The logic checks out, because that's probably why most prisons are considered haunted.
Yeah, like she mentions that there are people who were in there because they stole a loaf of bread, right? But when you see the character of who the warden is and kind of the motivation behind having such a prison style, like you understand why someone who stole a loaf of bread might still have ended up there for a while. So
yeah, and I have doubts as to whether it was a normal prison anyway, because of like, I mean, America is a religious nation, what can I say? But like, the warden seems especially intense about it. So, and I think Amy like mentions the warden is like the kind of preacher that would like burn witches and like flog sinners. So I'm like,
right,
is this like a conversion camp type of camp, or like a working camp type of camp, or just like a prison? Like, which one are we hitting? Are we hitting all three, you know?
Right. So they run into these two, and then Amy, basically seeming to have no energy to push back, just goes along with helping Matt. This is where they get stuck going in circles, like for real. And then Amy, when they meet up with Ruth Ann and Trinity again, Amy says that they were completely disoriented, and Matt says that was an exaggeration. Which I'm like, no, it wasn't. You guys were absolutely disoriented. If that's the best explanation that can get. And I think this is where we really see like Matt leaning hard into everything has a logical, real explanation based on physics, logic, and psychology. Like he's unwilling to even accept what has just been shown to him with his own eyes. So like, despite the fact that it sounds like he's seen a ghost in his lifetime, he is like unwilling to accept that these things could be real beyond like hallucination. Like he's even willing to believe that the electromagnetic field of the light grid is enough for them to see these things.
I mean, I'm not entirely against what he's putting down here, because he brings up, the EMFs, like you mentioned, because there is like a haunting frequency, right? Like where you feel like those negative effects because of a certain frequency. And there's like theories as to why, like maybe that's why people have certain experiences, whatever. I think we talked about this in episode 13.
We totally did.
But like, I kind of liked the science-ness of it until they got lost in like the dining room and the kitchen and then back to the dining room. And I was like, oh, okay, they actually are just haunted.
Yeah.
But like,
yeah.
I understood the vision until that point.
Well, for me, it was just like they're under the light grid. They're under the light grid all the time. Like but they're not feeling haunted all the time.
I mean, I was connecting like haunted to like wanting to die in your retail job. like those negative effects being the same.
I see what you mean.
Is what I was going for.
Yeah. I get you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, like there's some effect from it. Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is fair. Like there's been not to like a haunting frequency, but there are like effects of like when you look at computer screens all day and like the kind of lights you have, right? And like all of those things affecting a person in office settings, right?
There's even the extreme versions of like you don't want to be too close to a radio wave. Like, you know, there's definite known effects for being too close to sources of waves like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's these sorts of things where it's like more background and a little bit farther away, where like it's not always the most obvious what the long-term effect of that is.
Right.
I guess I was also a little frustrated since Matt was like, these ghost hunters on TV, like they don't know squat about physics and they don't know anything about reality, you know, like all of that stuff. And then I don't know, and then he says stuff like this where I'm like, okay, this doesn't really line up with you being like a physics guy. You know.
Yeah, I don't really know his qualifications, to be fair.
And for that matter, like he says like, oh, you know, they basically lie on TV, right? They like come up with bullshit, and then he's talking about how they're going to make their TV show with bullshit.
I know.
Like he doesn't believe in ghosts, and he's like, but we're gonna make the best TV show about finding ghosts, and we're gonna be better because we're gonna be like science based.
Yeah,
like they don't know what science based is.
He's like, Amy's like, these lights are gonna give off EMF, and he's like, exactly. We're gonna get so much EMF reading, it's gonna be crazy. It's like that's not really the point.
Yeah. So anyway, I think just Matt is kind of a bit of a scumbag, so maybe that's what it comes down to. Trinity and Matt are doing this but not wanting to be caught by Basil. Like they're like, don't tell him we're here. And Amy's like, yeah, okay, and pretty much just rats them out right away, which doesn't matter because they end up running into someone, right, who runs at them, and they reveal themselves immediately, right? Like, probably for Matt because he was afraid, and Trinity because she's like, haha, bitches, I found a ghost, you know?
Right.
And so she like runs in there and is like, Basil, like, guess what? Amy, guess what? And Basil's like, you guys need to leave. But there's no logic to be had. Like, Trinity is so excited that she's just like, I don't care, like, I found a ghost. But that's obviously not what actually happened here. And Matt's realism actually explains like, no, there's a man in the building and we need to do something about that.
Right. And the do something is still not call the police.
It's still not call the police.
We're gonna go look for him.
Yes, we're gonna go confront him ourselves. Always the best answer.
Crazy.
Matt here also reveals himself. Like, I don't know how he thought he was going to have this whole television show with Trinity, knowing that she believes in ghosts and that he doesn't, because it takes one interaction with this random guy for him to be like, believing in ghosts is stupid, and I can't believe you believe in ghosts. So it's like, there's no chance that they were ever going to maintain a friendship, relationship, whatever, long enough for that to work.
Yeah, this was definitely quick turnaround from him being like, I'm going to pretend, to immediately having the biggest crash out of his life. And it's not even just him saying, like, be realistic. This is a man in here. It's like, you're an idiot. I'm not going to be an idiot. Ghosts aren't real. Grow up. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah. No, it was honestly comical, which makes sense. Like, it was comical how quick and hard he turned around on that.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much immediately after this, while they're talking about how they're going to go about finding this man. And when I say they, I really just mean Matt and Basil are like having a little man circle moment where they're like, we could do this or we could do that. And Trinity's like, the guy's right on, like literally on the TV screen right in front of us right now. Which I like lived for that moment, honestly. So they don't actually have a security camera hookup to this TV. The security camera has revealed itself on the TV screen. Basil's like, that's low priority. We need to go find this guy. It's
crazy.
Great. It's wonderful. They see his legs sticking out from a bookshelf, so they're like, all right, we're gonna go get him. Before they go directly to him, Amy does show everyone the graffiti in the bathroom, and it is like crazy now.
Mm-hmm.
It still looks really fresh. It's got scratches, and there's just a lot more of it. Basil points out like it's probably more than one person. Like, this is so much so quick. Amy is like not down to continue, and is like, we should call the police.
Mm-hmm.
And Basil's like, no, bad idea. So we talked about this a little bit already, but this is where that kind of split comes in. Basil's wanting to protect his job. Amy's wanting to protect herself. Valid. And so she and Ruth Ann kind of split off from the group. And that's where Amy, you know, in sort of opposition to Basil, decides she's going to call them anyway. This is where Ruth Ann has her, like, I think, major character shift.
Mm-hmm.
She's concerned because she's present here with Amy that she might lose her job for defying Basil. Like, she doesn't want to be complicit. And so she's like, Amy, like, hang up the phone. Like, I'm not going to lose the one good thing in my life. Which kind of puts Amy in her place about herself a little bit, too, of saying, like, basically she needs to grow up a little bit. Like, the rebellious thing is not working. It's like, it's holding her back. Like, she really kind of gives her an unexpected read of her take on Amy's behavior, which, like, I felt like to a degree was needed. I think Amy kind of needs to see what the effect of her behavior is like. Not that I even necessarily think that should be a reason to change it, but I do think she just needed that outside perspective from someone like Ruth Ann, who's, like, otherwise pretty tame.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, I think Amy is totally right to call the police because they should be prioritizing their safety. And I don't think Basil's, like, retail conflicts training is going to quite stack up to, like, the conflict training that hopefully the police have.
Yeah, it was weird because, like, Ruth Ann is saying some things that make sense, but, like, it is rough because I'm like, do I really agree with this capitalist slop I'm being served?
Mm-hmm.
Like, Ruth Ann, I like you, but damn, is it sad that you're sitting here calling your work your family. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it is sad, right? Like, that's literally all she has. And yeah, like, she totally misses the mark on Amy being, like, you spoiled child. It's giving, like, the, like, older generations calling, like, right now Gen Zers entitled, right? Where it's like, actually, they're just, like, speaking up, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, I do think she misses the mark. I even though I do think Amy needs to hear some of that perspective, you know?
It's just crazy because I think about, like, Ruth Ann also had, like, a written report by Basil that we get to see, and it's him being like, she should get a pay raise. Like, she's been here so long, and she's so, like, great for us, and you should reward her commitment to us, right? And it's like, she really is putting in the work for this place and treating it well because she loves it, and it's like, they really don't give a shit about you, do they? Like, they do not care.
No, it's a good point where she's, like, so committed to, like, protecting her job and being like, this is all I have. Like, she's really, like, she's handing it over to them, right? They have no reason to give her a raise because she's not going anywhere, right? Like, they are getting all they can out of her, and they don't need to pay her another cent to get that because it is all she has. So it's kind of sad to see that because even, Basil being part of the system is still advocating for her, and I don't think she would advocate for herself.
Right. Yeah. It just makes me think of, like, crunch work and, like, putting in so many hours for free, basically, like, for nothing. And, like, obviously that's not exactly what Ruth Ann is doing, but, like, I feel like the sentiment is the same, right? Like, she's just putting so much of her life into a place that does not care about her. And even Basil, like, writes that nice thing about her, but he also, he doesn't care.
If he cared, she wouldn't be here right now.
Right. Like, he's just misguided in thinking about what matters. But I think Ruth Ann is also in that same trap of thinking this matters more than your life.
I certainly would have been open to an argument of, like, our local police will escalate this situation. Our local police have shown that they can't handle stuff like this. All right, fine. Those might be good reasons. But the reasons that we've provided, which is we don't want to lose our jobs, we don't want to look bad to Pat, bad reasons.
Yeah. Especially because we figure out the issue, like, isn't even really with Basil or Orsk as a company. Like, it's with their security, right? Like, they're not being thorough enough. So it's like, do we need to put our life on the line for a problem that isn't even ours? Like,
yeah. And the proof of that comes when they actually find the man. So they find Carl, who has been living in the store. This is the man that Amy saw this morning. A little bit about Carl. In my opinion, he's giving a bit of a misogynist based on some of the things he says. He says something like, there's a war on fathers, and he wants to talk to Basil man to man, things like this.
The war on fathers about, like, the custody battle he's having or whatever the hell.
Yeah.
I was like, this is such a red flag. Like, oh my God.
For sure. So when they find him, I really laughed at this scene. Basil's like, we're part of a team, so we're gonna, like, vote as a team on, like, what we're gonna do with you next. He's, like, really leaning into that company language, and he's like, but I vote we're gonna give you the police. Which I was like, damn, that's That's messed up, actually. Um, and the team's like, nah, we don't really care that much. We can just let him go. To which Basil kind of huffs. And I was like, that doesn't seem like it's being a team player, being Orsk minded, as he says, huffing and puffing that you didn't get your way.
It is interesting that it's Basil and Matt that vote for the police, and then it's all the women that vote to let him go. I just wonder if that's like intentional. Women are supposed to be more forgiving, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, like empathetic.
Yeah. I will say, as soon as Carl started touching people, though, I was like, send him to the police. Do not touch me.
Like, yeah.
No offense, but you're a man I do not know. I don't want you to touch me, you know?
100%. I mean, to me, it's just like Carl really clearly needs some sort of help in this situation. He's like, I don't want to go to the shelter, but it's like, come on, dude, you need something. And like living in the Orsk is not the answer, you know?
Yeah. And to be fair, being arrested is also not the answer. That's not going to help him either.
Exactly.
So it's like, it is a tough situation, but it's like, you can't live in this store, and I don't know. Like, I don't know.
There's like a safety feature to it too. I mean, he seems less threatening when like the run at is explained as a run away, right? Like it's like, okay, like maybe, right? But there's definitely a bit of unknown here, and it's just like there's kind of a difficulty in being careful that unknown and like fear around that doesn't cause you to make a poor decision, right? So maybe like that's what's informing it, but they need to do something. Like I just don't really think like being like, okay, no police is like the end of that conversation. They need to do something about Carl.
Yeah, I mean, considering I worked in a public library before working where I work now, like, homeless people are a constant, right? Like, they need somewhere to go, and we have heat, we have air, like, we have bathrooms, we have water, all of that kind of stuff. So
Right.
it, like, we're used to that kind of stuff, and you're gonna have people who, like, are disgusted by them being there or upset by them being there, but it's like, where else do you want them to go? Like,
Absolutely.
we do not have the infrastructure for some reason, greatest nation on planet Earth,
Oh boy.
but we don't have anything to help them, right? So it's like, at least we can give them somewhere to sit down and relax for a little bit.
Yeah, and this is a bit of an aside, but I was in New York this week and spent a part of one of my days in a New York Public Library branch just to like get some things done on my computer. And there was like pretty like clear signage on the wall, not like right when you walk in, but like obvious enough of like these hypotheticals of like, I don't know if citizen is the word they use. Maybe they just like, I'm a New Yorker and I need a shower. I'm a New Yorker and I need food. Like these hypotheticals of like, where do I go? What do I do? Like, which I thought was kind of interesting because that's kind of the direct response to that, right? Of like, okay, we're getting a lot of folks here who have needs. Library maybe serve some of them, but certainly not all of them. Like, how can we redirect people to places where those services might actually exist? And maybe in New York, some of those services actually do exist, unlike, our random town,
Yeah, libraries are great, and they're getting their funding cut every day.
Oh my God, honestly. But yeah, so they don't hand him over to the police. And so Basil's like, I'm going to go step outside and just like shoo the police away, basically. In the meantime, and again, this was like, there's a few moments where there's pretty comical transitions, I think, just because they're so sudden. Trinity is just finished crying because it turns out Carl's a human. And then she's like, let's do a seance. Like, she's like full back in it again.
Yeah, I think Carl says it, and then she gets like excited, and then her and Matt are like, we're gonna do this, it's gonna look great on camera. I'm like, oh, they made up really fast, I guess.
I know, like, Matt is in it again.
It's also kind of crazy, like, I guess you expected to have a seance tonight. Like, why do you have so many handcuffs?
That's a good point. No, I think he did. Like, I think he has so much stuff. Like, it's emphasized multiple times. He has kind of a lot of bags with him, and I think he is like prepared for anything.
I feel like there are gonna be so many gags about what he pulls out of those bags.
Oh, I'm ready for it.
Surely, right?
The Mary Poppins bags.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's already been wild. He clearly had like a lot of the EMF readers. So, yeah, so they use handcuffs. It's nuts. And after some time, it actually starts to do something. So we see this kind of gross scene with Trinity and some snot that I won't recount in too much detail, but that kind of like triggers the haunting that's going to happen. And that pulls in Carl, like whatever's happening to her kind of drifts over to Carl, and he actually really becomes the focus of the summoned spirit. Takes on this voice, sort of secondary voice, and refers to himself as the warden, which I guess makes a lot of sense, and this is where we can start thinking about like what is really happening here. We know that the warden of the Panopticon, from what Matt said, was Josiah Worth. So it's, I mean, a high likelihood that it could be his voice if he's referring to himself as the warden.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I'll point out here too is, though, even though Trinity is kind of under some sort of effect because of this, she was still able to ask the spirit who he is, and that's like what causes him to explain himself. So really, like, the haunting is, at least in my opinion, really just on Carl for real.
Yeah, it's interesting that we enter this seance with Trinity going, I don't know how to do a seance. We're just going to figure it out. And then she actually, like, pulls it off, but I guess in the worst way possible.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way of describing it. Yeah, because it was gross and, like, weird, and I certainly haven't seen a seance go like that before in any other literature, but I feel like it struck the right tone, honestly. And of course it was going to work, because like none of this is actually about any of these characters being smart or thoughtful about any of this stuff, right? It's really just the story's happening to them a little bit. And not, I say that in other books to mean a bad thing, but in this one I don't. Like, the story is just happening to them because they are a little bit just pawns and you know, like we said, caricatures of who they are. So it's just got to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So the warden explains his mindset, I suppose, about what he is interested in doing here, and even claims that he's specifically targeted for these people to come and be there that night. That it was no accident that it is this group of 5 that is summoning,
which like kind of helps that feeling that, you know, everything is happening to them, and it makes it so it doesn't feel like a negative, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm thinking back to the store kind of getting loopy on them. Like, the thing that is happening is bigger than them. There's I think very little that they're doing to drive the story, because yeah, whatever the forces at play are here are like playing with them.
Yeah, which again just speaks to, like, I don't want to get into capitalism right now, but it really does speak to it, doesn't it? Like,
I mean, that's, I think, what it's trying to do.
I know, exactly. Oh, it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
So I did pull out, like, I feel like I often quote things on this podcast, despite this being a book podcast, but I did pull out some for this because there's some interesting statements from him. So one was, my partners grew fat off the labor of my penitents, but I truly cared for them, which, like, relating to this capitalism thing we're talking about, feels like exactly what it's trying to parallel, right? Connecting kind of the retail store and capitalist structure to prisons, and kind of uses the same language that Basil uses in that review about Ruth Ann, of saying, like, oh, if you, like, make her rich, she'll make us rich, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's really leaning into the kind of weirder parts of what he said.
Yeah, I mean, it also just touches on how prisons work in general. Like, you do just have free labor, right? It's just like free slave labor, and like a terrible system. It doesn't actually help anyone.
Constitutionally protected slave labor at that.
Mm-hmm.
I like listened to there's a podcast, I think I've mentioned it before, Ologies, that I like to listen to, and this is the second time she's posted it, but she just like does a read through of the Constitution and like does a little bit of explaining of what each amendment means and like the articles and all that. And yeah, the one that like is like, there's to be no more, the amendment that's no more servitude, right? No more involuntary servitude. It's like, except for prisons. So it's right in there.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that he mentions but I truly cared for them, because I think that's what people think sometimes. Like, I think that's what Basil believes, right? He's like, I'm doing this because I care, right? Like, I want to see Amy be this way because it'll make her more successful, and like, we're a team, we're partners here. Like, this is coming from a place of care. But that's like, if we dig into it, that's not really what it is, you know? But maybe that's what this warden believed too, right? I mean, in his heart, probably like, no, I'm doing this because I want to reform people. But then when you like rip off the layers, like, if that's actually what he believed, it probably wouldn't have looked this way.
Right. And that, again, is the Christian religious side of it, right? Like, you send your kids to a conversion therapy because you care about them, because you want to save them, right? And it's like, actually, you're torturing them, you're killing them.
Yeah. The other part of this, which alludes to kind of the more concentration campy vibes that I mentioned earlier, was, I prescribed the toil that purified their souls. And I should point out too, when I say concentration camp vibes, like, this is the sort of language that was used around it, but that is not obviously what they were actually trying to do. Like, they were clearly out for extermination in that case, but that is like some of the narrative that they used around that was like, oh, the work will save you.
Yeah, anything to justify what they're doing, right?
Yes. And there's always something, right? There's always something to justify poor behavior. They're always going to have an explanation, and someone out there is going to believe it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
He gets into the details of what he believes this means for the group specifically. So for Matt, he says that he needs to work to save him from like romantic toil. And he even gets into, I don't think for all of them, he gets into details of what that looks like. For that one, he's like, he needs to like churn something. I actually forget. I didn't write down the details for this one, but he was like, he needs to do this thing like 10,000 times a day and that will save him.
Oh, yeah. Like, yeah. Some kind of churning of like a machine.
Mm-hmm.
That does make me think of the cogs again, though, which you mentioned earlier, which
That's
I
actually,
don't remember if it was in the book or not, but like it's an interesting comparison.
Yeah, no, he didn't use that exact phrase. It was just kind of the vibe of what he said, but like it is like the exact symbolism that is used for that when people say the cogs, right?
Yeah.
For Ruth Ann, this is where he mentions that she still possesses the mind of a child. He calls out the creepy crawlies directly as like this kind of mindset is what needs to change for her. He also refers to her as a spinster, rude.
Crazy.
So maybe he like perceives that her not being married is like a problem too, which would make sense, especially when we're thinking about if there's Christian influence on this. Like he might have an opinion about that.
Yeah.
But I don't think he prescribes like this is what your work would be.
I don't think so.
For Trinity, he says she must be saved from her tempting ways. Which is like, God, what horrid language to use, honestly.
Yeah.
He does say something about, I did see that she had one and I didn't write it down, which is stupid. It was something like her body needs to be like crushed in some machine. And I think that language was like, I don't think the implication was that she needed to be killed, but like she needed to be like physically harmed in some way to like get her in shape was kind of the vibe of that, which is a little bit different than the work mindset of what he mentioned with Matt.
Yeah. Interesting.
And then for Amy, it was even more different than that. He says that Amy needs to be put in a tranquilizing chair and refers to her as being a sacrifice, but doesn't really explain in the way he does for the others of like why she needs to be saved, like why she needs restructuring of any kind. And like, again, this is not work. And I think it's important to point out that really in the case of both women, it's not work. It's something needs to be done to them in order to fix them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I said both women, but there's 3 women here. The only person who gets assigned actual work in the perspective of the warden is Matt.
Which, like, makes a lot of sense if we're considering the religion and the time period and all of that kind of stuff.
Right. So after getting this list of weird jobs that the warden thinks is good for them, Carl, who is hosting this spirit, offs himself with handcuffs. It's very gory, unpleasant, and that is almost the end of the interaction with the spirit. But Basil does come in and is like obviously horrified. I wouldn't want to be in Basil's shoes for this, that's for sure. And as they're like trying to like, I guess, clean up the situation, like address what they're going to do next, Carl has one more thing to say with the warden's voice, and that's the doors are open.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we end up at this half of the book. So it left us, I think, in a good spot for some theories. There's a couple things to address. So one is, obviously the thing we just get, the doors are open.
Mm-hmm.
Like what does this mean? He's speaking again from the perspective of the warden, the Panopticon prison. And he does mention shortly before this, like the doors, I think he says the doors to the beehive, right? They only open one way. Which also is why I think all of these people die. Because I'm like, if they're one way, no one's coming out.
Yeah.
So I have some thoughts about what this means, but I think I'll pass it to you first if you have any ideas of what the doors are open means for what's going to happen.
I mean, I think I could go 2 different ways. I think one is we might be visited by more spirits, like some of the names we saw as graffiti, like the doors to the cells are open. So we're getting kind of the prisoners interacting and possibly harming some of our cast here.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other option is the parallel universe weird looping that's happening. Like we've entered a different space now. Like nobody will come to save them. The police will never show up, as we've seen. Like they're just kind of going to be stuck within this building until the end of this night, basically.
Yeah, I think my thoughts are more aligned with the second one, though a little bit different, because I do think there's something to be said about the parallel universe of it all. I think I was almost even thinking in the vein of episode 13, where they're going to enter an alternate space. There's a mention of the double doors in the building, like a lot of fake double doors, fake windows that don't actually lead to anywhere, right? Like they look for the guy behind a pair of them. So when he says the doors are open, I almost think like that's going to trigger one of these sets of double doors to open to a new space, and that they'll like enter the panopticon, if you will. And I don't, given that setting, I have a trouble understanding exactly what would happen to them in that space or what they would need to overcome. I think the motivation would be Basil wants to clear this stuff up, right? So like Basil, despite not being there, if he might for the haunting, he might play the game to be like whatever it takes to like get this off the record, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Though I wonder, it'll probably be important that Basil wasn't there, so we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because like we see Amy and Ruth Ann like mess with the doors, right? So it would make sense for them to come back again, and this time they actually open.
Mm-hmm.
For Basil, I think he's kind of like perfect in the Warden way, right?
Mm.
So that's why I think he really wasn't there, because there's nothing he needs to change, according to the Warden, obviously. But for the sake of this story, he needs to change in the fact that he needs to not care so much about this job. He's literally going to get some of these people killed. So
yeah, that's a good point. Like that makes me think too that Basil, maybe there won't be an alternate space, because if anything, Basil is going to be the person to enact their punishments, right? Like their whatever the Warden is saying. Like I think Basil's going to be the one to somehow like put them through their trials, as opposed to going to somewhere else to make it happen.
Oh, like unintentionally?
Yeah, like I don't think he's in with the Warden,
Right.
you know. So yeah, I do think unintentionally.
Maybe because he like keeps trying to push it, right? Like, because when he sees Carl's body, it's not like a we really need to call the police now. It's like a we need to take care of this before people show up situation, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I could see that, where he keeps trying to fix whatever is happening here. And that just makes it worse for all of the people that are stuck in this situation.
Yeah. Yeah, so the other thing that stuck out to me as we were talking, I mentioned in the explanation of what the Panopticon was that Matt gives, he mentions there's a labyrinth under the actual like surveillance prison portion where the work gets done.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of emphasis on the store being labyrinth-like. So this was a bit connected to my alternate space theory, but maybe they're already in that space, right? And this kind of connects to you saying like maybe they've gone the one way already, right? Maybe they are some of these spirits that the names are written for, and there's no active memory of that, you know. Like maybe this is like a space where like they have been transported into, like kind of a hell, you know.
Oh, like they're in a purgatory.
Yeah, like they're in the labyrinth under the beehive right now. And that is why calling the police doesn't do squat, because they're like not in a real space.
That's so interesting.
I have more trouble explaining Basil there without him literally being the Warden, but that's kind of like my, that's my take on the parallel universe being there right now. Like, and them have, and I'm just really looking for a reason why the police don't know where this store is. Like, I feel like something mystical is happened where like they are just not in reality.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think they're not in reality. Like, them possibly already being dead though, and like going through this, it'd be kind of interesting if like the Panopticon was like a kind of purgatory, and it's just like the way that it showcased itself adapted with time, right? So it was a prison, and then now it is this kind of store, like capitalist hell, right? And so like Basil isn't the Warden that we're seeing right now, but he is a Warden, right? Like of a different kind.
Yeah.
That kind of story is dependent on if we want a happy ending or not. But if this is like satire and like the point is you never escape capitalism, then like I could see a story like that possibly. It'd be crazy depressing.
It would be depressing. I guess I'm not sure how far this book is going to go on the sort of message. Like if it's trying to make a stand or kind of be on that side of like, this is a satire, like these guys are just not going to make it out. It's futile, you know?
Yeah.
But when I start to think about maybe the messaging of the book being on the sort of critical of capitalism side, like I want the story to go in the way where like, if no matter what, like if he is the Warden or he's a parallel for the Warden, that like Basil kind of is going to lose this battle. Like what's going to happen is they are going to go through some sort of trials. They're going to have to do some sort of quote work. Hopefully we're not going to see the specific things that the warden mentioned, but probably something that alludes to them, right? Like I think they're going to go through something, and the good ending is they push back and they beat capitalism. You know, like they actually find a way to push back and like put Basil in his place, and that's kind of like the feel good story. But I don't actually know if that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, like before getting into this discussion, my idea of the end was I do think more people are going to die. I'm going to rapid fire all of my theories for the second half of this book. I mean, Carl, he's already dead. Matt, I think, will keep pushing the realist route and will get himself killed. Trinity, I think, will keep tempting fate, which would be an interesting parallel to her tempting ways, and I think she will die. Ruth Ann, I also think she'll die, but I think she'll die because of some kind of sacrifice she makes. Like, for her family, she'll, end up being killed.
Gosh. That's a good point. I was thinking maybe she'll just, be so frozen in fear that she lets whatever bad thing is going to happen to her.
Which I could believe, but she's been so proactive in the parts that we just read in regards to confronting Carl. Obviously, that could change because she was just a part of this seance, but, I think it shows that if the moment is right, she can push forward and, take action. So I kind of see her story ending that way as well.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because that's basically, I didn't get into that with the behavior change, but she totally does become bold, right? She starts looking actively, telling everyone to stop being afraid. Like, she has that capacity.
Yeah, and then, obviously, I think Basil will fix his behavior in the opposite way the warden wants and kind of become a bit more human and, he'll stay alive. I think so.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also think Amy, as our protagonist, will get the reality check from Ruth Ann and then also understand her sacrifice and will also stay alive and will be better for it.
Yeah.
In the trauma way that you grow as a person, yeah. I guess.
Yeah.
That's my theories in regards to who lives, who dies, who tells your story, you know?
Yeah. I honestly I don't know why I didn't think about people dying, because I guess I really just thought everyone's going to stay alive, but that's probably not going to happen.
Nah. As soon as Carl was gone, I was like, yeah. Oh, we're killing people. I see.
For sure. Yeah, it almost feels like it has to happen, right? God dang it. All right. Yeah. So let's maybe talk about this second quote that I pulled out, the "tonight will be her final shift."
Mm-hmm.
Because I think this kind of connects with this of, yeah, I also don't think Amy will die, and I don't think that's what this was implying, that she'll die. But where do you think she will end up? Because, it could go either way on the capitalism thing, right? Like, are we going to end up with Amy pushing back and, finding some other path for herself, finding passion, finding desire, and, following that? Or are we going to see her, get promoted to be a manager and, go higher up into the corporate world?
I think she will quit. Kind of like I'm not gonna let this job kill me. Screw you, I'm out of here type of situation.
Mm-hmm. But then what does she do? She can't afford rent.
I know, but I feel like the stance of this book, if it's a positive one, has to be you don't give your life for your job. You work to make things better, to live, right? So it might also just be a fade to black. We don't really know what she does, but she does something. Yeah.
I think now I'm just so split on whether or not I think this is going to end as capitalist misery, or if it is going to end with a positive light. I came into it really thinking it would end with a positive light, but I find myself unsure now.
Yeah, because then the other question is what does Basil do at the end of this if he lives, right?
Yeah.
Which I feel like he has to live. You mentioned he has a sister he's taking care of. You can't kill that guy.
Yes, I think he has to live. I agree. I wouldn't be shocked if Basil sticks around but does just change behaviorally to be a more positive influence, if you will.
That's
to
crazy.
Think more about the people as opposed to the company,
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know if I could work. I mean, I've worked in some supposedly haunted places. Every library on Earth apparently has a ghost. But if this happened
That's
to
a good
me,
point. After experiencing this, yeah, maybe he'll transfer first.
Yeah, I mean, Youngstown keeps getting brought up a million times. Maybe they both just transfer.
Right. Also, like, depending on how this ends, the store probably should close.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to close anyway, right?
They're already not doing well, so.
Yeah, so I could believe it getting just closed down at the end of this book as well.
I mean, that's probably how they'd explain it. Even if they know it's because it's haunted, they'll probably just say, "Oh, the sales weren't good enough." Yeah.
Yeah, and then I wonder if we'll get like a business cover up, right, from Orsk, being like, we had to let go of these employees. We feel so bad for them. Like, they were a part of our family. They'll always be with us. Like, that kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah.
About having to let go of a bunch of employees and stuff. Because all of these people are going to be dead in their building. That I could see that kind of capitalist ending.
For sure. Oof. Yeah.
So, yeah. A lot of options.
Well, I think that's it for now. We'll come back to this next episode.
And we'll probably talk a lot more about capitalism.
Yes.
And if you have your own thoughts and theories, our socials are in the description. And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.